Afghanistan. Joined now here in New York today by Congressman Randy Forbes, who sits on the Armed Services Committee. Congressman, welcome.
Thank you, Martha.
What are you learning about what happened here?
Martha, the same horror that everyone else is learning. The fact that we have 3 innocent people that are killed, they get there to do something that's very good, and all of a sudden, tragically, their lives are over. And it's something that we're seeing, but unfortunately, it's something that was not unpredictable, because we looked in Afghanistan. The one thing the Afghan insurgents wanted at the beginning was a time certain when we were going to pull out, so they could go to any supporters of the United States or supporters of the government and say, look, they're going to be gone. We're going to come after you when they leave. And we're looking around the globe now. We're seeing one foreign policy failure after another, Martha, and this just is part of it. I mean, go to the Ukraine situation. I mean, what the Russians wanted most was to get our missile defense systems out of Europe. This administration gave it to them. What the Iranians wanted most was to get those sanctions pulled off, and we pulled those off. What the North Koreans want most is to get our mines pulled up, our landmines. We understand the administration is considering now the Ottawa Treaty, which would make us do just that. And then the president today is on a trip to the Asia-Pacific area, where he said basically that was going to be our big pivot, our big rebalance. And he travels over there having tried to pull a carrier out of our fleet, benched half of our cruiser fleet, 11 of our cruisers, and reducing our military down and dismantling it. I think that's a concern that most of us have as we look at his foreign policy failures around the globe.
All right, let's go back to the beginning here. Let's go back to Afghanistan. You go back to the election of President Obama, and really one of his main messages was that the decade of war is over. We're going to get out of Iraq responsibly. He said we're going to get out of Afghanistan responsibly. But at that time, he said, you know, this is the right war, Afghanistan. We need to be aggressive in Afghanistan. We need to make sure that al-Qaeda is decimated. We need to stay there and make sure that there is a secure peace. These were Afghan police security guards, you know, probably trained by U.S. forces. And they, you know, what security did they have at this point in, you know, sort of staying on the side of the Americans who were there to train them in the first place?
Martha, that's just the point. That's what we've been saying all along. First of all, when you drop that number below 10,000, almost every analyst that looks at it says that's just not enough troops to be able to do what we need to be doing there and to make sure we have the security and safety.
Do you want to be one of the 5,000 people left in that country when you see what's going on?
Certainly you would. And then imagine this, if you're an ally of the United States, you supported the United States, and all of a sudden the president just comes up and says, by this date, regardless of what happens, we're out of there and you're on your own.
Here's my question. Why leave one single person if you're going to go down to those numbers?
Martha, I can't disagree with that. If you're not going to provide what we need to defend and protect the men and women that are there, we need to get completely out, and you need to either do one or the other. The unfortunate thing, the big mistake that the president made is when he announced a time certain, we're going to get out regardless of what happens. Should have never done that. It's one thing to get out, it's another thing to announce this is the date when we're going to do it, and draw those numbers down to where they're too low to do what we need to do to protect the people that are there.
What about the future leadership? We're going to talk more about this with KT McFarland, but obviously they had elections. You've got to give these people credit. Very brave, standing in line, these women in many cases who waited in line to vote in this election. And you think about the fact that this is a maternity hospital, that these poor doctors have just been attacked at. Vulnerable, and yet really wanting to be able to vote, right?
Well, Martha, look at them. A lot of them did that because they thought the United States was going to be there to protect them and help them. They came out because we told them about these principles of freedom and, you know, come out and help us, and we're going to help you. And many of them did that. They put their lives on the line, and now we're just turning our back on them and walking away from them. I think it's a tragedy, but one of the things that we're seeing is we're doing that to our allies all over the globe today. And that's why I end up where I started. Why do you want to be an ally of the United States? How do you know they're going to be there for you when you're going to really need them? And I think that's what a lot of the people in Afghanistan feel today.
Well, the president's been reassuring to Japan on this latest trip, right, saying, you know, we've got your back. And you raise a very good question,
Martha,
about that. How do they know, right?
When you look at the Asia-Pacific area, that's kind of the, if you want your health care policy, you can keep your health care policy moment in foreign policy, because he said we're going to have this big pivot, but he just hadn't put the resources there to do it.
Interesting perspective. Congressman Forbes, thank you.
Thank you.